Hello, I hope people can see me. I am Deborah So. I'm the editor of Dance Informer magazine and the director of Victorian Dance Festival. Welcome everybody. And I am just really excited to get us together today to be able to chat with Will Centurion and just talk about our mental health and our self-care during this really difficult, stressful, strange year. There's so many words to describe it. It's definitely been an interesting year, hasn't it? So it's just really lovely to be able to spend this time in the morning, have a cuppa. I hope everyone's got a cup of something warm, and just have a time to just learn and stop and pause for a little while. So I'm going to just keep chatting for a little bit while we admit everybody. We've got about 150 people on this morning's call, which is just fantastic. I'm so excited that 150 dance teachers and studio owners wanted to come together and take this time out to learn and grow and be together. And I wish I could see all your smiling faces because there's so many people, it's a bit difficult. But what we're going to do is have the chat functioning, and we'd love people to be using the chat. Hello, Ruth. Hello. I got a hello from Ruth there. Hi, Mel. So please use the chat. We want everybody interacting. Will's going to be asking questions, asking for feedback and ideas and different things like that. So fill out the chat as we go along. I'll also be keeping an eye on the chat so that as we go along, if there's questions and things you have for Will, we can address them so that this can be as interactive as possible. So we've just got a few more people coming on. Hello, Jane. How are you? Linda, Steph, Sharon. It's so lovely. Carla, Sarah. It's so lovely to see all your names. I wish I could see you in person. So for those of you who might not know, we at Victorian Dance Festival, we run Vitality Teacher Day, which is a big, beautiful professional development day for dance teachers that we hold in Melbourne each year. And this year it had to be postponed like everything else. So we missed seeing your beautiful faces and getting together and networking. So it's great to be able to at least do this and get together so I can see. Hello, Louise. Good morning. So we've got a few more people coming on. And yeah, I'll just kind of keep chit-chatting until everyone comes on. I hope everyone's warm. So I'm hoping that someone is in their pajamas or in a snuggie. That's what I'm hoping for. So the joy of Zoom meetings, you can be wearing whatever you want. So I was like, oh, I have to actually do my hair and makeup because I'm actually going to be on camera, but it's fun when you don't have to. I've got another hello here. Yes, Rianne's in her PJs. Woohoo! Oh, and Jane is out for a walk. I love it. Oh, and Louise has her Ugg boots on. Oh, Sharon, thank you for checking in even though you're at treatment. It's lovely. Sending lots of love to you. Purple Ugg boots. This is the best. So yes, we do. We love you, Sharon, and we're so glad you could join us during this tough time. Hi, Amy. Uggies are on. You know what? I actually have Uggies on too. You've got to see these. Everyone needs polka dots. Is anyone not wearing Uggies? Good point, Cherie. Oh, Sephira's in her dance clothes. There you go. So, all right. Well, we'll get started in just a minute. A few more people waiting. So I'll just give you a little bit of background. So Will Centurion is just an absolute gift to this dance industry. Thank you, Will, for being a part of this. He was a professional musical theatre performer for many, many years, over 20 years internationally and in Australia. He was in the national tours of the biggest shows like Aladdin, West Side Story, The Lion King, In the Heights, The King and I mean, the chorus line, I mean, the list just goes on. Will knows the ins and outs of this industry and the pressures of this industry. He knows everything about studio life, about teaching, about being a student, about the pressures of being a professional. And when he finished his professional career, he really wanted to focus on the hearts and the minds of dancers and dance educators and studio owners. And so thank God he went off and studied psychology, and has spent many, many years learning and training in psychology and mental health. And he now uses that to help performers, studio owners and teachers to be healthier and stronger and to make a difference. And Will was one of our speakers at VDF Vitality Teacher Day last year and was an absolute hit. People were chasing him down all weekend for help. And he is just a wealth of knowledge and tools and practical ideas of how we can move forward at any time, let alone a time like this where it's been a real struggle for everyone. So we're really, really grateful to Will and that he's here today. Thank you so much, Will, for taking the time to share with us and give us some strategies. And we just, can't wait to hear from you. So we'll just take about 1 more minute. There's a few more people joining. Just to let you guys know, this is being recorded, just so that we can share it with all of you afterwards as well. So you have it to check back on. Feel free to take photos of any of the slides or screenshots as we go through if they speak to you, and they're tools that you may also want to use for your students or at your studio or with your staff. So feel free to take any screenshots. Yep, this is being recorded just as a reminder. So be careful what you do put in the chat because it's being recorded. But feel free to use that group chat. We want everyone to use it, and put any questions in as we go along as well, and we will be addressing them as we go. So I'll hand over to you now, Will.
All right. Hi, everyone. Super excited to be here. Thank you so much, Deb, for creating this platform. Thank you so much, VDF, for allowing this to happen. I'm excited to chat with you all for the next 50 minutes. So I guess a good place to start while I introduce myself is if you could just pop into the chat where you're coming from, that would be great. There's such diversity in this community, and I'd love to know, what some of the areas are that you're coming from in Australia or in Victoria or wherever that might be. Wow, New Zealand, that is amazing. Okay, we've kicked off. How wonderful. So it's a little bit about me before we start with the content of the workshop. As Deb explained, I spent 20 years in the industry performing in music theatre. So I lived abroad. I was based in Germany for about 8 years, and I toured Europe. I did 2 European tours, Saturday Night Fever and Aida, I think it was, and lots of other shows while I was over there. And then I came back to Australia, and I lived out the rest of my career. I took my last bow at the Sydney Opera House in the Heights. And then the next day, I literally started this new chapter, which is about working in mental health. What I've created here in Melbourne is a mental health service like Headspace, which focuses on performing arts youth, performing arts teachers, studio owners. I go into schools and I deliver workshops and seminars. I've got 2 12-month programs running in 2 of the biggest schools, one in New South Wales and one in Victoria. So that's a pilot program. It's called the Student Mental Health Solutions Program. And I'm piloting that because I'd love to build a framework that I can implement into performing arts schools for 12 months. And that covers like coaching workshops, mental health workshops, teacher, professional development, all of the above. So because I was in the industry, because I understand what it was like to be a student, a dance teacher, a performer, a lot of my stuff is very industry informed. They're very practical solutions, and it all comes from lived experience and obviously, a foundation in psychology and mental health. So what we're going to do today is talk about self-care. Why we're going to talk about self-care is because the COVID-19 impacts have made it really, really evident that we're all feeling disconnected at the moment to something. We're either disconnected to future, to financial security, to hope, to structure, to community, to confidence. Each of us is going through this shared experience, but having a very, very individual, way of feeling it. So self-care is of the utmost importance, particularly at a time like this. What we're going to do today is look at some key areas of self-care. So we're going to answer about 3 or 4 questions, and I'm going to offer you some practical solutions that you can implement in your own lives and that you can also implement with your students as well. Teachers are just such a valuable resource. And if you are not looking after yourself and if you are not operating from a full tank, then you're only giving half of what you've got. It's really important that you look after yourselves, particularly at a time like this. And I'm flagging this because as we move forward, beyond the COVID-19 impacts and whatnot, we're going to start to see a lot of mental health and emotional challenges creep up in students. And so if you are not equipped and you are not looking after yourself, the demands that that's going to place on you will be incredible. So I just want to make sure that you can walk away from a workshop like this and just have some go-tos that you can use, and just be a little bit more informed about what self-care is and what self-care isn't. So I think we're pretty much ready to kick off. What I'm going to do now is share my screen, and I'm going to show the slides. I'm going to work through the slides. Feel free to take photos so that you can keep them in your photo library. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. Please feel free to comment if something resonates with you or if you want to challenge anything. This is a community too. We are online, but this is very much still a community too. This is the community that we have access to. So if we can engage in conversation and engage with each other, that would be really, really helpful, because that's how we support everyone that's involved in this common goal, and that is to be able to care for ourselves, provide the best version of ourselves for our students, and make sure that they're safe as well. So I'm going to share my screen and we are going to get started. Here we go. So as I said, please feel free to use the chat whenever you would like to. So welcome to Self-Care Strategies for Dance Teachers and Studio Owners. As I mentioned before, my name is Will. The foundations of this are all going to be evidence-based coaching, psychology, mental health tools. If you want to know more about what I do, please feel free to head to my website, www.mrwillcenturion.com. And I really hope to create an ongoing relationship of support with all of you. I don't just come in and tick some boxes and walk away. I really, really do love to create a connection and some communication and an exchange. So what we're going to look at today is, what is self-care? What isn't self-care? The areas of self-care that are commonly overlooked or that people are not aware of, and some practical habits and some practical practices that you can take away with you and implement for yourself and for your students as well. So let's kick off with question number 1. Do you take care of yourself? So take some time to pop in the chat either a yes or a no or a maybe. How about that? Let's keep it simple. Let's give you 3 options. Yes, no, maybe, even sometimes. The question is, do you take care of yourself? The more that you can reflect on that, the more authentic that you can be about your answer, the more that we can build on what you have right now. So, do you take care of yourself is a pretty basic question. It might be sometimes, it might be, I think I do, I'm trying to, but I'm not very great at it. I could always do with a little bit more. Sometimes, yes, not enough. I'm loving all of these answers. Thank you so much for your honesty. Don't think about it really, or I think I do, but I might need more. Sometimes, occasionally, there's always room for improvement. Usually after everything else is looked after. Wow, that's a really, really great answer. Thank you for your honesty in bringing that to the forefront. Hell yes. Okay, so somebody definitely looks after themselves, and that's really wonderful to know. Occasionally, sometimes, I think I do, but feel I'm stretched at the time with being a mum and a business owner. That is so true. It is hard to look after ourselves. There's a lot on our plate at the moment. There's a lot of roles that we're needing to fill. There's a lot of hats that we're having to wear. So, you know, self-care may fall by the wayside, and that's completely understandable. But what we're wanting to do now is just to remind you of its importance and to create a space that you can turn it into an everyday practice and something that you don't think about, that you just do because you see its worth. Thank you for your sincerity here. It becomes my last priority. Thank you so much for everyone's openness and willingness to answer this question authentically. So now that we've identified a yes or no, or maybe or sometimes, or it could be improved on, or maybe not as much as I should, the next question to consider is how. So how do you take care of yourself? What are some of the ways in which you choose to take care of yourself? What are some of the things that you do? What are the smallest actions that you engage in? What are some of the biggest things that you do for yourself? So just take some time to pop into the chat how it is that you take care of yourself, because it's in the how that is the most important part. So thank you for kicking us off. Deb, going for walks, going to yoga, some meditation, some exercise, some long walks, some movement, some dancing, a daily routine, some meditation, some stretching, some gym, some walks. There's a lot of walking going on at the moment. That's so great to hear. Yoga, a mindful cup of tea. I love that. Thank you, Stacey. Some exercise, walk, rest, laughter, so important. Laughter and a Pinot Grigio. I'm a Cab Sav man myself, but yes, I totally understand. Extremely important. Connecting with family, meditation, champers, bit of fine taste there. Go Vicky. Well done. Champagne Sundays, why not? Puppy dog cuddles. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things that we can do to self-care. And it's always in the how. It's not just about talking about it or about saying that it's something that we should action. It's in the doing. It's in the practice. So thank you so much for sharing that information with me. I've been rewarding myself with days off and my time. Thank you, Linda, for sharing that. Calls with family, cuddles, pets, workshops with you, Will. Thank you, Miss Mel. I appreciate that. And I really do hope that this is a self-care tool and a self-care practice. Okay, so let's dive in. Let's look at what self-care is. So self-care is an activity that takes care of your emotional, physical, and spiritual health. Already there's a typo there. Hey, that's life. Self-care is about actions that improve your mood, that decrease anxiety, and that help you to prepare and repair. So it's a good thing. It is most certainly a good thing. So here's a couple of suggestions that we might have heard that just reinforce the importance of self-care. Number one is when you find yourself on a plane. Can I just make sure that everybody's microphones are on mute, if that's possible, please? So number one is that when you find yourself on a plane and the wonderful steward or stewardess says to you, can you please make sure that you put the oxygen mask on yourself before you worry about others? Some really, really good sound advice, and not just relevant for flying. Make sure that you put the oxygen mask on you before you worry about anybody else. Another wonderful quote from an extremely great mentor of mine and just extremely wise man, Jordan Peterson, is the concept of putting your own house in order before you worry about somebody else's house. Now, we love to give advice and we love to tell people how they can improve themselves or what kind of options or ideas they may be able to implement. But how about this? How about you start putting your own house in order first before you worry about somebody else's house? And so when we say that, we're not just talking about your home, we're talking about you. Making sure that you are in order before you start dishing out any advice or any instructions or any kind of knowledge. It's modeling what you would like others to practice in their own lives. So putting your own house in order before you worry about anybody else's house is a really, really good way of going about it. So again, we're just going to reinforce that self-care is taking care of your emotional, physical, spiritual, psychological well-being and health. And it is the foundations of improving your mood, decreasing anxiety, and helping you to prepare and repair. Now, here's a slide that's going to bust a few bubbles, and I'm just going to apologize before we kick off because there's going to be a lot of disappointed faces out there after we get through this, but better to know than not know. So what isn't self-care? Self-care is most certainly not a selfish act. Self-care isn't something that you force yourself to do. Self-care isn't something that you don't enjoy. And here's the bomb that I need to drop, unfortunately. Self-care is absolutely not the same thing as pampering. So self-care is not getting your hair done. It is not getting your nails done. It is not buying some nice clothes. It is not scrolling through social media in your time off. It is not a pizza and a bottle of wine. And it is certainly not ice cream and chocolates. So I'm sorry if I've burst some bubbles there, but I just wanted to make you aware that self-care and pampering are two completely different things. Is pampering nice? Absolutely. Is pampering a gift that we should give ourselves? Yes. But is pampering self-care? No. They are two very, very different things. And we're now going to move into what self-care is, what it looks like, and how you can implement into your day-to-day life. I know I can see these comments coming through. There's a lot of damn, there's a lot of no, there's a lot of I've been doing it all wrong. I'm so sorry, Alana, to bust your bubble. I don't want to deflate anybody's spirits, but there's a big difference between pampering and self-care. So let's get into understanding what self-care is and what the right way of going about it is. All right. So, two types of self-care: proactive self-care and reactive self-care. Number one is looking after yourself before you burn out, before you feel overwhelmed, before you encounter a challenge or a threat. That is proactive self-care. That is taking pause when you need to. That is preparing for your daily demands. Now, there's a lot going on in a dance teacher's life, and there's a lot going on in a studio owner's life. So self-care or proactive self-care is the stuff that you do for yourself before you begin the race, before you go into the challenge, before you become confronted with all of the threats that you're going to face in that day, in that week, in that month. Reactive self-care, on the other hand, is waiting till you are overwhelmed and need to do something about it. Reactive self-care is burning out and having to stop because you've got nothing left in the tank. And reactive self-care is in response to an event that triggers you. So it might be a flooding of thoughts. It might be a flooding of feelings. It might be some stories that you've created about a person or a situation or experience or an event. We all have triggers, and triggers can do a lot to us. They can impact us greatly. COVID-19 is a massive trigger. Stage 4 restrictions is a massive trigger. So when we're confronted with things like that, reactive self-care might be important. But when we're looking at our day-to-day life and trying to create a platform that can sustain us and that can keep us going, proactive self-care is the optimal approach. So there's one that happens before, there's one type of self-care that happens after. We don't judge these at all. It's not, oh, you know, like I should only be doing proactive self-care, or shame on me for doing reactive self-care. The fact that you're implementing any self-care in your life is the most important thing. So whether it comes before or after, it doesn't matter. But optimally, and in order to give you the best shot at being the best version of yourself and at operating at your full potential, you are wanting to implement some proactive self-care as a day-to-day practice. Okay, let's keep going. So here are the 8 areas of self-care that are commonly overlooked. We don't really take the time to separate our lives into different segments. And it's really, really important that we do, so that we can start implementing different self-care practices in accordance to the different areas of our lives. So the 8 segments of self-care include your body, your mind, your heart, your social life, your money, your spirituality, your environment, and your career. So these are the eight areas of self-care that are commonly overlooked, because we might think to ourselves, well, you know, like I do a little bit of yoga, or I do a little bit of meditation, or I have a cup of tea in the morning, or I do a little bit of journal writing, or I have a bath, or I do go outside and go for a walk. But that might only be targeting one particular area of your life. So it's important to know that there are 8 factors here that we should be considering. And in accordance to that, there are tools that we could be creating in regards to each of those areas. So self-care, thank you so much, Miss Ruth, for asking our first question. What is this social life you speak of? So social life might be the self-care in relation to the community that you're in, the kinds of people that you surround yourself with, the demands that they place on you, just what they're needing fulfilled, the kinds of personalities that you're surrounded by. That's sort of refers to social self-care. So for example, it might mean implementing some really strong boundaries. So self-care in regards to your social life might mean implementing some really, really strong boundaries. So, practices where you give yourself permission to say no. Practices where you allow yourself to press pause and not need to answer a question straight away, or not need to have everybody's issues resolved immediately. Practices where you don't go out if you don't feel like going out, or you don't, go to that party, or you don't go to that gathering because you're not in the right headspace, or because at that particular moment it's not in your best interest, or it doesn't fulfill your well-being. I gathered, Miss Ruth, that it was a bit of tongue-in-cheek. I have no social life. Well, I beg to differ. We're actually, congregating with, sort of 80 plus people. So that's a pretty big social circle. Yes, our social life has changed. Yes, our social life has been impacted, but, there's always room for movement. There's always room for discovery. So I guess in answer to your question, Miss Ruth, in wanting to implement some self-care around a social life, it might be about creating something that's currently not there, or creating a bit more of what you would like, or what might keep you happy. So it might, rather than closing off, it actually might mean opening up a bit more. It might mean including a couple more people in the circle. It might be engaging in a bit more conversation, having your Zoom session to meet up with somebody or the house party app or whatever it might be. You know, there are different versions of self-care for different people. Some become, for some people it's more helpful to become introverted, and for some people it might be more helpful to become extroverted. So if there's not a strong support system, if there's not a collective of people that offer you energy and nourishment and fulfillment, then it might be, some self-care might be about implementing some new ideas in that area and opening yourself up. Vicky, I'd go to the opening of an envelope at the moment. Okay, so there might be some room for movement there, Vicky. It might be about, you know, occasionally saying no, or giving yourself permission to not need to feel as though you have to be included in everything, or as though you have to participate in everything that's offered to you. How do you implement self-care into your career? Really good question. So, self-care in relation to your career might be understanding that you are more than what you do. Understanding that being a teacher and being a studio owner is a part of the pie, it's not the whole pie. It's about understanding that your career is something that fulfills you, or that should bring you some happiness or some nourishment. If it's something that tortures you, if it's something that drains you of all energy, if it's something that leaves you feeling exhausted, then it might require you making some exploration in that as to what about it is not working, or what about it might need to shift. You know, the thing we're aiming for is a sense of balance, or a sense of happiness in all of these key areas. And that might require some holding on of, or some letting go of, whatever works for you best. What it's going to require is just some movement, or some shifting around, or some readjustment, or some repairing, or some recalibration. You know, if they say the definition of madness is doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result. So if it's not working for you, if it's not helping you to feel the way that you would like to feel, if you're not feeling revitalized or nourished, then it might require you allowing yourself to let go of something, or to repair something, or to readjust something, because as I just explained, or I just mentioned, the definition of madness is doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result. Okay. So let's keep going. So what are some things to remember, particularly at a time like this, and in relation to self-care? Number one is that you cannot operate from an empty tank, period. You know, we need to be operating from a full tank. We need to just feel as though we are revitalized and renewed and repaired so that we can give. Self-care is the practice that allows you to get your power back. So yes, we are triggered. Yes, it's a demanding world. Yes, people demand a lot of us. Yes, we are constantly needing to problem solve. Yes, we are needing to fix. Yes, we might be needing to rescue, whatever it might be. But self-care is how you get your power back. It's the thing that you do for you to refuel and refill your tank. Giving the world your best, not what's left, is the optimal approach. It's really, really important that when we go into a day, when we go into an event, when we go into an experience, that we're able to just give the best version of ourselves, not what's left, you know, not driving us into a wall, pushing through for the purpose of doing and for the purpose of achieving, and having nothing left at the end of it. So please make sure that you prioritize your self-care, that you fill your tank, that you give back to yourself, and that you give your life, and you give that everyone involved the best version of yourself, not just what's left of you. So let's look at some staples. Good food and good sleep. Easier said than done, but let's look at some staples that you know, everybody needs to know these. But I'm just going to interject there. Sephra, I think we all give our students and studios and families the best and have nothing left. for the other aspects of our lives? Absolutely, absolutely. And it's about finding a balance. It's about saying no when you need to. You can still be a nice person. You can still be a good person. You can still be a generous person and say no. Or not yet, or not right now, or I don't have an answer for that, or I will get back to you later, or that is beyond my scope. I'm not the person for you, but I will help you will help you find somebody who can help you with that issue. Yeah. So thank you so much, Sephra, for bringing this to our attention. We don't need to just give. What we do need to do is give to ourselves. So some staples: good food and good sleep. Good food includes aspects like balanced meals, limiting your sugar intake, limiting your carb intake. Easier said than done. I get it. I love me a sweetie. You know, I'm on a intermittent fasting at the moment. I'm sacrificing my sugars. It is painful as F, but I'm doing it because I already feel 100 times better, and just my brain is a lot clearer and my body is a lot healthier for it. So limiting your sugar and limiting your carbs will have an impact. Trying not to eat more than you actually do. Like, I don't know why that was such a, try not to eat more than you actually need. I don't know why that was such a light bulb moment for me, but yeah, you can sort of push the plate away when you've had enough. You know, I come from a Latin American family, and trust me, we eat. Like, there are some serious courses that get served on that table, and it's taken a lot of discipline for me to actually say in those sorts of environments, you know what, I've had enough. Thank you very much. I actually don't need to eat anymore. Or I appreciate the gesture, I appreciate the meal, but I'm full. So saying no when you've actually had your share is a really, really good place to start. Letting food be what fuels your energy is super important. You know, like, we have to understand that food and sleep are the foundations of our performance, not the other way around. And when I work with students, I need to remind them of that. It's not that you do a great performance or a great audition or great training and then you reward yourself with good food and good sleep. It's that you actually do that first. And any athlete knows this. You do that first, and on that foundation, you build your performance, you build your productivity, you build your training. So good food, good sleep come first. In relation to good sleep, try and rest for 7 hours. You know, that's a good capacity of sleep time. Not always possible. I suffer from a ridiculous amount of insomnia. You know, I might get anywhere between 2, 3, 4 hours. You know, on a good occasion, I'll get 7, but I can't achieve that every single time. So I make sure that when I've had an evening of 3 or 4 hours sleep, that I'm aware that that's the tank that I have to operate on the next day, and I don't push myself any harder than that. There's no point in me trying to operate at 100 when I've only slept for a couple of hours. So I remind myself to manage my expectations, you know, to limit my output, because I'm operating on a quarter tank. So it's up to me to decide what I can and can't do based on that. So aim for 7 hours sleep. Another little takeaway is 90-minute sleep cycles. I only just found that out a few weeks ago from a podcast that I listened to. If you cannot get your full 7 hours sleep, then sleep in increments of 90 minutes. So if you've got to get up early one morning, you know, and you can't get 7 hours sleep, then better to sleep 90 minutes, or better to sleep 3 hours than 5, or any of the other stuff in between. 90-minute sleep cycles is what's going to allow you to not feel groggy when the alarm goes off or when you need to wake up. So as many 90-minute cycles as you can fit in is the optimal approach to your sleep practice. Yeah. turning your phone off before you go to bed, putting it on flight mode, like keeping your sleeping space as a space of rest, your bedroom as a space of rest is a really, really optimal approach. Keeping your room dark so that you can kick off, your sleep cycle, your circadian rhythm, all of that sort of stuff. It's really important. Like the mood in the room, the setting in the room is really important to the quality of sleep that you have. Who knew that you need to prepare for sleep? I only found that out, not long ago, that it's good for you to start preparing for your sleep 30 minutes before it happens. So start dimming the lights, having a hot shower, putting your pajamas on, slowing down, unwinding, getting ready for the fact that by the time you get into your room and that you want to go to bed, you are in the mindset that that's what's going to occur, that your body is well aware that that it's sleep time now because you've prepared yourself for it. And last but not least, no exercise or food before bedtime, because it will get your digestive system going, it will get your heart pumping, it will get the chemicals in your body moving. So no food or exercise before sleep time is really, really important. Very important. Yes, thank you, Linda. I'm a night owl too. So it's just about doing the smallest things that you can do, or the smallest shifts that you can do to try to get to this practice where you don't do any exercise or any food, or you don't do any big activities before your sleep time. I'm not asking, or nobody's asking for changes overnight. That's impossible. You cannot let go of a structure or a system that you've held your entire life. You've held onto your entire life overnight. It's just not how it happens. It's incremental shifts and incremental changes. So what's the smallest thing you can do to start implementing some good food and some good sleep into your day-to-day life? Christy, how long before bed should you stop eating and exercising? That's a really good question. I actually don't have the answer to that. Christy, that might be a little bit of a Google research in order to find that out. But I definitely know that shortly before sleeping, eating and exercise is not optimal. How long before bed is recommended? Oh, okay, I'm hoping that's the same question there too. It's hard when we usually finish teaching around 8:30, and when we are at the studio, I get home after 9:30, so find it very difficult to wind down. Okay. Thank you, Emma, for sharing that. Lindsay, in response to the questions above, I think it's 2 to 3 hours. But Emma, with regards to that, getting home at 9:30 and having to create some sort of self-care practice or some wind down practice, again, it's about doing what you can do. So if a starting point for creating this new approach is 10 to 20 minutes, then that's the gift that you give yourself. 10 to 20 minutes at the end of your long day where you implement some kind of self-care. It's not a big ask. It's not a big ask to introduce even 10 minutes of a self-care practice, of a conscious self-care practice, but it's super important and it will absolutely change your life. Again, in order to create some time, it might be about saying no to some things, saying no to emails after a certain point, saying no to phone calls after a certain point, saying no to people after a certain point, asserting that, some 10 to 20 minutes for yourself is your right. It is what you need, and it is what you will make happen because you see the value in it. We all have the same amount of hours in the day. We all have the capacity to implement a self-care practice, given that we all have the same amount of hours in the day, and there will always be somebody busier than you who is aware of how important self-care is, and who, regardless of how much productivity that they're required to do, are implementing that in their life. like high functioning entrepreneurs, business owners, multimillionaires honestly do understand the value of self-care, and they make sure that they take time for themselves, because it's not just operating at 100 and expecting to be okay. It's about understanding that we each have a limit, and that we have the right to create a time for ourselves to repair and recover. I struggle with dinner times when we are teaching 4 to 8:30 without breaks. It is better to snack throughout the night or try to fit in a meal when we get home. Sure, snacks throughout the day is great. Is there some adjustment or some shift that you can make with regards to what that meal is? Can it be a more optimal meal? Can it be lighter? You can use what you have and make it work for you. Work with the resources that you've got and make the adjustments that you need to make so that it works for you. That's all that anybody's asking. It's not about throwing an entire system away. It's just about using the resources that you have and making small adjustments that allow it to lean into the goal that you would like to achieve. Okay. Some practices for your body and for your mind. So for your body, some walking, some running, some dancing, some Pilates, some yoga, some stretching, some playing. How about that? A little bit of playtime. Let's not forget that there's a little child in all of us, and it's really important to tap into that inner child, because it helps us remind ourselves to not take life so seriously. So there's some practices there that you can implement in terms of how you can self-care for your body. In relation to how you can self-care for your mind, some reading, some meditating, some journaling, some gratitude. I cannot tell you how important it is to practice gratitude. It is something that we forget to do, but it is something that is so revitalizing and so important, particularly at a time like this. Be grateful for the things that you do have. Send some gratitude out into the universe for what you've got, for the supports you've got, for the food on your table, for the roof over your head, for the family that you have, for the partner that you have, for the pet that you have, for the friends that you have. Gratitude is really important, because we can get really overwhelmed with what we don't have, what we're missing, what we'd like to have but is not there yet. We can really get overwhelmed in the problem finding area of our brain and not be appreciative of what we do have access to and what is there supporting us. At a time like this, the fact that all of our base needs are being met, all of our survival needs, food, shelter, clothing, water, the fact that also our survival needs are being met is everything, because there are parts of the world that are going through COVID-19 and their base needs or their survival needs are also not being met too. So just remember to implement some gratitude practice into your day-to-day life, because it will help you appreciate what you do have, and it will put a smile on your face. Listening to some podcasts, doing some puzzles, and some inspiration hour is also helpful as well. So this is something that I created with my partner, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about inspiration hour later, but let's make a mental note of that. Just how important inspiration hour is, and I hope you're curious about it, because we will get to it in a second. The most important thing for a studio owner and for a dance teacher is to learn to de-roll at the end of a day. So de-rolling will support your well-being. De-rolling will allow you to set boundaries and create some relief and repair. Stepping away from the character, stepping away from the teacher, stepping away from the studio owner will allow you to re-energize yourself. It is okay to come home and just be a muggle. Just be a mother, a daughter, a sister, a brother, an auntie, an uncle, a wife, a husband, a girlfriend, whatever it might be. Allow yourself to de-roll and not always be the teacher, and not always be the studio owner, and not always be business driven. Just be a muggle sometimes, because there's so much revitalizing that can come from that. So remind yourself that it's okay to be human. It's okay to just be you. Take the hat off, learn to de-roll, just be yourself. Because that part of you is important. That part of you is really, really special. That part of you needs to be nourished. And teaching and being a studio owner and being a business owner is what you do. It is not who you are. And there's a big difference. It is what you do, not who you are. So give yourself permission to be a muggle and learn to de-roll. Manage your expectations. So we are all going through some kind of interruption and disconnection and loss at the moment. We are all feeling or surfing the stages of grief and loss. We are all doing the best that we can. So number one is to just know that it's okay to cope in a different way to everybody else. Just because someone bounces back, just because somebody jumped online the day after, restrictions kicked in, just because, someone has a completely different coping mechanism to you, doesn't mean that you're any less than, doesn't mean that they're coping better than you are. We all are unique. We all have a different way of coping. You are allowed to cope as authentically as possible. Just be authentic in your way of coping and build on what you have. Don't settle with it. If you are aware that you cope a certain way, fight, flight, freeze, or flow, whatever that might be, build on that. Don't dismiss that it's there. Don't punish yourself for it. Just understand that you can incrementally build on that coping mechanism. And that's how you create change in a step-by-step process. What's the smallest thing that you can do to build on the coping mechanisms you've currently got? Learn to let go of your past and do your best for now. One of the biggest things I tell students is do not try to create what you had. One of the biggest things that I tell studio owners and dance teachers is do not try to recreate what you had, because that's the past now. Life before COVID-19 was just that. It was life before COVID-19. And so if we're not making adjustments, if we're not embracing change, if we're not working with what's available to us today and trying to build, then we're missing the point. We're missing the whole point if all that we're wishing for is for life to go back to the way it was. You're missing the point. It means that you are going through all of this pain for absolutely no reason. So let go of the past, create something new for yourself, create a new way of doing things, create some new expectations, create some new approaches and coping mechanisms, and just do your best for now. We've had to let go of concerts, we've had to let go of costumes, we've had to let go of mid-year and end-of-year appraisals, awards nights, graduation ceremonies. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff that we've had to let go of. Classrooms, people have had to move on to Zoom. So just manage your expectations, because we're just doing the best that we can with what's available to us at the moment. So there's no point in asking students to come back at the same level they were prior to COVID-19, because that's just not going to happen. We're barely keeping it together ourselves, yet we're wanting students to sustain the standard they had when they were in the classroom and at the bar. It's a bit unrealistic and a bit unreasonable. So manage expectations and just allow everybody to do the best that they can with the resources that they've currently got. Don't be perfect, be human. That's all you can ask of yourself. There's no need to be perfect, be human. The reason I brought that up is because I was working with a client who said to me, I was always a straight A student. I turned up to every class. I was always early. I always stretched. I was always motivated. I was always disciplined. Why am I not allowed to be a different version of myself while I'm going through all of this? And I said, you're exactly right. You are allowed to be a different version of yourself. You are allowed to be vulnerable. You are allowed to be less disciplined. You are allowed to be less motivated. You are allowed to be disengaged. You are allowed to be whatever it is that you are in this context, because you have been all those other things. And expecting you to be that person all the time is a lot of pressure to place on someone. So give yourself permission to be yourself. Even if no one else will, give yourself permission to just be human in this context, because you've done all that and you've proved that you are more than. So now be vulnerable if that's what it feels, or if that's what feels authentic to you. Yeah. Okay. So some habits and practices that you can do. Here we go. These are the practical solutions that I can offer you for you to take with you. Number one is to create a no list. So saying no to doing things that bring you pain, not saying no to things that are hard, because we've all got to do things that are hard, but saying no to things that bring you pain. Saying no to checking your emails late at night. Once you've arrived at home, you are a mum, you are a son, you are a daughter, you are an auntie, you are an uncle, you are anything else than the teacher or the business owner. So saying no to checking your emails late at night. Clock off at a certain point and understand that the world can wait and everybody can wait till tomorrow. You don't need to solve everyone's problems straight away. Be in the driver's seat of your life, not in the passenger seat. Be the authority in your life, not at everyone else's mercy. No to scrolling on Facebook or Instagram as, a validation. No to saying yes all the time. No to feeling guilty, for putting yourself first. No to for feeling bad for making yourself a priority. No for judging yourself too harshly when you're just trying to do the best that you can with what you've got. No to doubting your capacity, because if you've made it this far, then anything's possible. By hook or by crook, if you've made it this far, anything's possible. And no to feeling embarrassed for being vulnerable. You are allowed to be vulnerable. You don't have to have it together all the time. You are allowed to be you. You are allowed to be different versions of yourself. So creating no list is a really important self-care practice. Creating an effort-reward balance. So for every small effort you make, you give yourself a reward. So this might mean that if you spend some hours in the day doing some admin, then the reward is that you give yourself permission to switch off and watch a movie at night. If you spent some time choreographing a routine, then the reward is that you give yourself some time to call to a friend and just chat about anything that is not dance related. If you've spent time cutting some music, then get outside and go for a walk as your reward. If you've spent all day teaching, then get home and give yourself a cup of tea. And if you've negotiated, which is something that we all have done, so if you've negotiated with parents, with teachers, with colleagues, with students, whatever it might be, then give yourself the reward of allowing yourself to laugh. Because sometimes in those situations, all you can do is laugh. Because if you don't, then it's a catastrophe. Or it can be all overwhelming. So creating an effort reward balance in your life for yourself is extremely important. Nobody's going to do that for you. Nobody's going to pat you on the back every time you do a good job. So make sure that you create an effort reward balance for yourself. An example of that was me writing 16 programs to try to move into the corporate arena. And I wrote 16 mental health programs and I sent that off. And I thought, you know what, I did it. I did the goal that I set to achieve. And I'm going to take myself out for a salted caramel ice cream. And I'm going to walk down Chapel Street and I'm going to enjoy the sun and I'm going to enjoy nature. And I'm going to enjoy this ice cream. And then I'm going to come home and get on with the rest of the work. And when I got home, I got 16 programs with, I cannot tell you the amount of red lines and crosses through it, asking for retypes, asking for rewrites. Imagine if I had waited for that to reward myself. Imagine if I had waited to receive an email that said, you are wonderful, you are brilliant, Will, now go take yourself out for a treat. So I made sure that I implemented an effort reward system, so I did that for me. And by the time I got back to my computer, I had revitalized, I had repaired, I had recalibrated, and I was ready for round 2. So here we go, Inspiration Hour. This is a gem, not just for yourself, but for your students. So we forget that creativity is not just about a performance. Creativity is not something you do for somebody else. Creativity is not just for the pleasure of others. Creativity is a gift that you give yourself. Creativity is giving yourself permission to play, to explore, to be curious, to attempt, to discover, and to feel free. That's why we love to be creative, because there's a sense of freedom about it. So Inspiration Hour is taking 60 minutes a week to do something that brings you a sense of childlike enjoyment. So paint, draw, share songs, write a poem, dream big with a sense of heartfelt joy. So my partner and I do this twice a week. We sit down for an hour and we share songs with each other. We talk about how that song reflects a part of our life. We might share a quote that we heard in a podcast. We might talk about that. We might, write some affirmations. We might write down some goals. Like, the point is that we nourish ourselves with our creativity for 60 minutes, not for a performance for anybody else, but for us, as a tool to self-care and as a tool to remind ourselves that creativity is about freedom. And so if you're seeing students disengage, if you're seeing students information overwhelmed, if you're seeing students lose their motivation and not attend class like they used to, it might be because creativity is no longer fun. So a nice self-care tool, or a nice tool that you could implement, is to give them an opportunity to look and discover and experience creativity as a freedom. So let them make suggestions, let them bring ideas to the table, let them take creative risk, let them dream, let them explore, let them discover. That's how you re-engage people. So I would recommend that you take away Inspiration Hour as something that you do for yourself, with your family, with your community, with your students, or with your school. So some things to remember as we start to wrap up. Start with the smallest thing that you can do to improve. That's it. No big changes overnight, no turning your life inside out, not letting go of everything that keeps you safe and everything that you've always known. Start with the smallest thing that you can do to improve your experience or to improve your self-care practice. Understand that everything that you are going through is temporary. This is not going to last forever. We will not be in stage 4 forever. COVID will not always be around exactly the way it is right now. You will not have to always teach your classes on Zoom. Everything's going to change because everything that you are going through is temporary. There is a start, a middle, and an end to every experience. So just surf the wave and get through it as best as you possibly can. And at a time like this, be kind to yourself. Self-care, because self-care is not the thing that comes after your productivity. Self-care is the foundation that you build the rest of your life on. So here's your challenge for you to do, and that is to create an actionable 20-minute routine in the morning or in the evening that you can start to implement in your day-to-day practice. So for example, I set my alarm this morning at 7:15 because I've got 3 workshops today, and they require an incredible amount of energy and a credible amount of delivery. And so I made sure that I give myself, it's an hour for me, I give myself 60 minutes at the start of every day for myself. Before I turn the TV on, before I listen to anybody's input or influence or opinion of the world or how I should live my life, I make sure that I put my own house in order first before I start my day. So for me, that includes a yoga stretch on a mat, following Patrick Beach on YouTube. It's a wonderful yoga instructor. If you want to do that, Patrick Beach, great, easy to follow yoga practices that you can just do on your mat in front of the TV. I meditate for 10 minutes. I listen to a podcast and get inspired. I do a little bit of journaling. I might write my list for the day or set some goals. I have my coffee, and I do all of that before I open myself up to the world, because I come first. And so I need to make sure that I've got a full tank before I scroll through social media, before I, look at Facebook, look at the news, and worry about all the gloom and doom. Before information overwhelm and before influence, I put my house in order first. So your self-care routine could be 4 simple things. It might be waking up and doing 10 mindful breaths, if that's the best starting place that you can. And then listening to a song, listening to a podcast. VDF has got a wonderful podcast available. I did an episode on there. So if you're wanting to know a little bit more about strategies and resources for studio owners, or just some takeaways and insights, the VDF podcast is the way to go. And then practice some gratitude, like 4 simple things that you could do to begin your day. 4 simple things. So I challenge you now to create an actionable 20-minute self-care routine that you can do for yourself, starting tonight. Because there's no time like the present. So what's, a little wrap-up self-care routine that you can do for tonight? Great. Okay. So, last but not least is to remind yourself of your values. Do your actions align with your values? Remind yourself of your personal values and remind yourself of your professional values. Your personal values are your patience, your perseverance, your love of learning, your compassion, your curiosity, your courage. Everything you do, everything you say, every exchange should be in line with your personal values. Likewise, your professional values. Every approach in your teaching, in your community, in your studio, as a business owner, should align with your professional values. So that might include collaboration, trust, loyalty, cooperation, honesty, and communication. Make sure that your actions align with your values. And if they don't, then do some recalibration or some reevaluation, so that you can make sure that you are operating authentically. And if you need to say no, you say no. And if something doesn't fit well with you, then let go. Because a values-led life is a really fulfilling one, and a really authentic one, and a really rewarding one, because you are operating congruently. Okay. So let's wrap this up with some mental health context that you can take away for yourself or for your students. Headspace is a wonderful resource. They go anything up to students of about 25 or youth of about 25. Great website. Check out Headspace. Check out the resources they've got. Give them a call if you need to. There's lots of goodies there for you to learn from. The Kids Helpline is wonderful, a wonderful resource. They actually match young creative or young youth, young minds with counsellors. And I think that service is free as well. So Kids Helpline is a really, really wonderful resource to tap into. Beyond Blue, if you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed or anxious, Beyond Blue is a great resource for adults. And last but not least, if you want to reach out to me, I offer counseling and life coaching along with all my workshops and seminars. So feel free to send me an email or get in touch through my website, mrwillcenturion.com. So before I wrap this up and we tackle any questions, I'm just going to talk about some of the services that I've got available for students. So that includes these 3 new workshops that I've created that launch September. So they launched today. It is the Rewire Workshop, which helps your students reduce their negative self-talk, catch their inner critic, reframe their unhelpful stories and develop their values and strengths. That's the Rewire workshop. The Repair workshop helps students reduce stress, overwhelm, manage their injury, clarify their self-care needs, and create and keep daily healthy habits. That's the Repair workshop. And Reboot is helping students reduce procrastination, support their motivation, set clear, actionable goals, and sustain healthy habits as well. So 3 new workshops that have launched today: Rewire, Repair, Reboot. They're $279 for 90-minute seminars. I've created a special at the moment, which is you can get 2 of them for $500. So if you want to implement 2 of those workshops at your studio, you can pick up 2 of those workshops, 2 of those 90-minute workshops for $500 is the special that's on at the moment for the month of September. And last but not least, if you're wanting to do any professional development for your teachers, I've created the Teacher's Mental Health Toolkit. This helps you understand how students think and feel, understand how creative students respond. It'll give you support strategies and communication strategies that you can use with your students. It will give you all the support contacts you need if any of your students are going through some emotional or psychological challenges and you need to refer them on. It'll give you some self-care practices or your staff self-care practices that they can use after a challenging situation. And it will give you some worksheets and some guides that are step-by-step and that you can follow. One of them is a safety protocol. So it just gives you a framework that you can fill in, that your staff knows to follow if ever a student presents a psychological or emotional challenge, and they need to be able to manage that. I've implemented this at 3 schools so far, and the feedback has been phenomenal. So if you're wanting to train up new staff, if you're wanting to train up existing staff, or if you're just wanting a common language that everybody can use to provide your students a holistic duty of care, then please reach out to me for the Teacher's Mental Health Toolkit. I would love to help support you and your community more by implementing this in your toolkit, in your practice. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for attending the Self-Care Strategies seminar. Thank you so much, VDF, for providing this platform. I hope there was something useful there for you. Please feel free to reach out to me if you would like to. I'm going to stay on now and answer any questions you've got. So if there's anything that you want to pop in the chat, if there's anything that you want to address now as a community, please feel free to ask away. You know, I'm happy to donate some additional time so that we can talk about some shared experiences and some practical solutions for those.
Thank you so much, Will. Thank you everyone for being part of today, and for thank you to Will for everything as well. This was fantastic. So feel free to put some questions in the group chat, and Will's going to stay around and answer any questions. He also has some resources that we will email to all of you as well as some information to take away. And yeah, and it's just been an honor, Will, thank you. And I furiously wrote notes myself, and yes, it's been really inspiring. So thank you to everyone for being a part of this. And yeah, feel free to write some questions and we will continue to help.
Thank you, Christy. Christy's off to be a muggle. What a wonderful thing to say. I wish you all the best in the world. Christy, enjoy being a muggle. Sephra, when we deroll from teacher and step into the next role, mother or partner, isn't it even more depleting? We are always in a role for others. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's really, really honest of you and really eye-opening. Yes. We can constantly recognize ourselves as a role. So it's extremely important to just find some time to just be us, to just be ourselves. So if there are demands that are pulling you left and right, I get all of that. You know, we've all got, you know, responsibilities. So just find 10 minutes a day where you can just sit by yourself and just be you. You know, what that's going to do for you is just remind you that you don't have to be a role all of the time. You can just be human. You can sit with yourself, with your own thoughts, with your own feelings, on a balcony, or going for a walk, or in your bedroom with a little journal, or with your earpods on, listening to a song. You can do that for just 10 minutes. And that's a break that you can give yourself, where you don't have to be anything. You can just be. And giving yourself the opportunity to just be for a short amount of time will change your life completely. Are your programs ones to teach in our studios? How do they work? Yes, so all of the programs that I offer are online. All of the programs can be delivered through individual, student Zooms, or I just delivered a week's worth of programs at Lee Academy in the Central Coast, and that was, they just set up a TV screen and connected the laptop to them, and all the students sat in the studio and took photos of the slides and took notes and asked questions. And, you know, that's what COVID-19 is teaching us, is that there are no stipulations as to how we create community and how we engage and how we educate. Let's not forget all of the wonderful lessons that are happening at the moment, that you don't need somebody in the room to affect change on people. You don't need someone in the student for a community to gather and learn. Someone in front of a student for a community to gather and learn. So yes, all of my programs, all of my seminars, all of my workshops, all of my training is offered online, and you can set that up however you want to, so that your community and your students can have access to that. Thank you so much. It's so nice to get some positive feedback here. De-rolling is definitely a high on the list of things, really must be done. Having lost sight of myself outside of the role of studio owner, wife and mother, can't wait to do this for myself. Do the smallest thing that you can do to start creating a de-roll practice. What's the smallest thing that you can do? That's all that anybody can ask of you. And if it's sitting in your room for a few minutes to do 10 breaths, then that's how it starts. So good luck with that, Melissa. If your students are regularly exhausted and you are finding it hard to keep them engaged, how do you bring it up with them? And what can you do to help in class? So inspiration hour is maybe something that you could implement. Everyone's feeling exhausted. We're all feeling Zoom fatigue. We're all feeling overwhelmed. This is where I'm going to put my counselor and life coach hat on, and Rian, I hope that's correct. I'm going to say, so what does engagement mean to you? Are you holding on to one concept of what engagement is? And because that's not being met, the assumption is that there is no engagement there. We need to redefine what student engagement is, because we're going through a very unique experience. So we know what student engagement looked like before COVID-19. We know what student engagement looked like for the first few months of COVID-19. So what does student engagement mean, and what does it need to look like in this context, when we're all fatigued, when we're all at our wits' end, when we're all hanging on for hope that in 2 weeks' time something's going to shift? Like, what does engagement mean, and how can you create engagement for now in this context with the resources that you've got? Maybe they don't come to class and they don't dance like they used to. Maybe they don't all stand in a straight line. Maybe they don't all execute the steps that you taught or the choreography that you taught perfectly. But maybe there's some other kind of engagement that you can create that will keep them there, that will keep them tuned in, that will keep them talking to each other, so that when we do shift into this next phase of restrictions, they're still there, they're ready to go, and they're more likely to tap back in. So we need to redefine the meaning of words, redefine what those experiences are and how they present themselves and how we can present them. So I hope that was helpful. And some students don't want to be engaged. Some students, this was the opportunity for them to realize that they wanted to press pause on their creative journey, and that's okay. They're allowed to. Everyone's going through their own experience of this. So some students need to tap out. Some students need to walk away. They need to switch off. They need to repair and recalibrate before they come back to dance. And you as a teacher and as a studio owner need to give them permission to. Because the worst thing that you can do in that situation is trying to keep someone stuck in something that no longer works for them. That has an adverse effect. So maybe letting them go is the answer to getting them back. And if they don't want to come back, then you can't force someone to be a part of your community if they're not willing to. It'd be like me forcing somebody to be a client. I can't force someone to sit in a chair in front of me. I can't force someone to keep coming back for therapeutic sessions unless they want to. I'm doing more damage than good by nudging them consistently to keep coming back to the drawing board if they're not ready to or if they don't want to. So sometimes it's about letting them go and knowing that if they are truly yours, or if they truly belong, or if they truly want to come back and feel included, they will. And if not, then you will find a new person to invest in, or you will find a new addition to your family or to your team. That's how it works. So trying to hang on to an experience is always going to have a counter effect. Yeah. Any other questions? When's a good time of the week for Inspiration Hour? Whenever you want it to be. Deb, Inspiration Hour is yours. You do it whenever you want to do it. In the middle of the day, in the afternoon. We do a yum cha afternoon here in this household, and then it's followed by an Inspiration Hour. It could be on a Sunday. I did it a little bit this morning. I woke up this morning and I knew that I've got a pretty hectic day ahead of me. So I sat on my balcony in my hoodie and my tracksuit pants, and I listened to some beautiful music by India Ari, and I let my memory stir, and I remembered chapters of my life, and I sent out some gratitude, and validated myself for how far I've come and how much I've grown and how many wonderful things are happening. And that was my Inspiration Hour. So it's your gift to give to yourself whenever you want. It's your life. You're in the driver's seat. You get to decide when it happens. You are at nobody's mercy. It's your business. It's your class. You get to set the rules, or you get to set the boundaries, or you get to set the framework. So don't forget that. If you're being led in a direction that doesn't work for you, then why are you giving permission for that to happen? Okay. Do you encourage us to participate in Inspiration Hour with our students? That would be a great idea. What a wonderful thing to do. What a wonderful way for a teacher to reinvent themselves and to not just be that voice of authority, but to also be the voice of creative freedom. What a wonderful thing for your mentor and for the person that you look up to, and for the person that you have that power balance with, because students do have a power imbalance with you. Hopefully until they get, when they get older, they realize they don't. But younger students will always have a power imbalance with you. So what a wonderful thing for the authority in the room to say, I give you permission, or I create a space for you to dream, for you to just be yourself, for you to be vulnerable, for you to just let go and offer whatever makes sense to you. What a wonderful way to recreate who you are as a teacher, or who you are as a studio owner, rather than the person that just says, do this, do that. What a wonderful new relationship for your students to be able to experience with you. And if you put yourself out there and you allow yourself to be silly, and make some silly suggestions or some childlike suggestions, like what a wonderful thing to see students, for students to see you in a different light. Yeah. So knock yourself out, Sarah. Put yourself out there. Let them do it alone if you want them to create a community, or give them a prompt and then tap out and then leave the space for them once you see them engage and once you see them going, or hang in there and, discover some wonderful new parts of each other. Yeah. Thank you, Julia. Thank you for participating. Yeah, just redefining definitions, redefining boundaries. Now's the time to do it. Now's the time to do it. Recreating relationships, reauthoring processes and approaches and the language that you use and the way that you think. Now's the time to do it. When we're stuck at home, or when we're stuck, behind a screen, or, when we've got restrictions that we need to work through, now's the time to rewrite your entire life the way that you want to, because you are the author that's holding the pen. So imagine when the gates open, you'll come running out of the other end of that with colors, because you've made use of the time that you've got, and you didn't just wish that it could all go back to normal. This pain served a purpose, because pain without purpose is just pain. Hey, Melissa. Melissa might introduce Inspiration Hour to the family and to the studio. Thinking about connection. Right now, that's the most important thing. How can we stay connected? That's all we want, because human beings that are disconnected are unhappy. So what can we do to remain connected? That's the most important thing. Do what you can in your community to maintain some kind of connection. That might be more important than the perfect class or the perfect choreography or the perfect school day. It's just to maintain some kind of connection. All right, geez, I think I've gone on there. I'm going to hand that back to you, Deb. It's 11:30, so yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you, everyone. Please, if you are willing to create some kind of a relationship with me, and if you are willing to introduce me to your community and to invite me along to help you support your family, I would love to do so.
Thank you so much, Will, and thank you everyone who was part of it. And yeah, hopefully we'll get to see all of you guys soon. Hang tight and enjoy implementing some of these strategies and ideas. And please email us if this was really helpful to you or gave you some great ideas and things that you're now going to implement or changes you're going to make. Let us know. We'd love to hear from you guys. And yeah, have a good day. See ya.
Bye, everyone. See you at VDF 2021.
2021. See you there. Bye.